I've done a lot of road trips in France, and every time I always learned a lot about how the French eat. My favorite thing is all those cute little roadside restaurants, especially on the tiny roads. This is a celebration of all kinds of travelers' food from France. It's really slow food, country dishes, beautifully cooked that make you really want to stop to eat them. I'm making gratin de chou-fleur, a cauliflower gratin with a cheesy bechamel sauce, pork chops and potatoes with juniper berries and wine, French onion soup, soupe à l'oignon, Quiche Lorraine, and some very French-style sandwiches that you can wrap up for a trip. This is the kind of food that gives you get up and go, even if you're going to stay put.
See you again, making the time again, seeing the signs again. Come over, and we'll meet again. Da da da, da 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 da.
I'm making all the kind of French food you find on the road. You'd think that would mean fast food, but it doesn't. It means slow food. This is going to be cauliflower gratin. For a gratin, you need bechamel sauce, which is a classic sauce that's butter and flour cooked together, and that thickens milk. A cup and a half should do. And I always like to infuse it. Say a little clove of garlic in there, drop in a bay leaf, and then just bring it to a boil. Then turn off the heat, slap on a lid, and let it sit for about 10 minutes so that the milk drinks in all the flavor of the garlic and bay leaf. Just getting out my main ingredient. I'm making cauliflower gratin, which is my favorite one. I'm just going to trim off the cauliflower into little bouquets and then slice them into large bite-sized pieces. Something gratiné means that it just means making a golden topping. Okay, this has got a skin on it and bubbles all around the edge. I'm going to turn it off and put a lid on there and just let it sit for about 10 minutes to infuse. Now I've got a big pot of boiling water here to blanch in, and I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice because with white vegetables, acid is what keeps it from coloring. And then drop them right in. Leave the oven on at 425. Nice and hot so it will gratiner. Just check that it's nice and tender. I mean, it's going to cook a little bit in the oven, but mostly it should be done. And then you can drain it. I'll just let the water drain off that and get going on this bechamel. Now, for bechamel you need about 3 tablespoons of butter. Then you need 3 tablespoons of flour. Whisk it in all at once and then cook it for about a minute because you want to cook out the flour taste, otherwise it tastes really starchy. And then slowly whisk in your infused milk, and I can really smell the bay leaf and garlic. The flour and butter together will thicken the milk into a lovely sauce. Pull out the bay leaf and the garlic. How much cheese you add is a matter of taste. This is Gruyere cheese, about half a cup at least. And then stir it into the sauce. Salt, pepper, now this cauliflower is drained out. I'm just going to turn it in the bechamel so it's nicely coated. And then let the cauliflower tumble into the gratin dish. Some breadcrumbs. They'll get nice and crisp in the oven. And some Parmesan cheese. And on the top, it adds extra flavor and it makes a really good gratin. Just keep an eye on it. You just want to cook it until the top is golden and the cheese is golden and it's all bubbly all around the cauliflower. I'll check it in 10 minutes. Nice and golden and crisp on top. Look at all that nice creamy sauce all around. Very soothing and nice and cheesy, and I love those little bits of crunch. This is definitely the gratin of gratins. Next, a famous market dish, French onion soup, and a real country restaurant dish, pork chops and potatoes with wine and juniper berries. This is French food for when you're on the road, but the point of it is to make you stop so you can enjoy it. This is a layered dish of pork chops and potatoes with juniper berries and wine. I have 4 big, fat, juicy chops. So I'm just peeling these garlic cloves and slide your knife into the meat and slide the garlic into the little slit you make on the side. Now, these get just browned first before you bake them. Just a little olive oil, but I always like a little more butter and oil. So salt and pepper, of course. Get it nice and hot because this isn't really the cooking stage, it's just the browning stage to get them caramelized. There are potatoes in this dish too, and you should choose waxy potatoes as opposed to floury potatoes because you want them to stay together. I'm going to cut them in thick slices, but with a floury potato they just turn to mash. I also want the fat, so just with a little stock or wine or something. Didn't want to waste the good bits. This little squiggle of oil on the bottom. You want some onions on the bottom, half the onions, and half the potato slices, and then salt and pepper on the potatoes and onions. And one of the key ingredients, juniper berries. Kind of a piney taste. And then right on the potatoes, stack the meat. Also some bacon. So then, scatter the last of the onions over top and the last layer of potatoes. More salt and pepper for these potatoes and onions. Don't leave anyone out. Finally, just before you put it in the oven, about half a cup of wine. Now just before I bake that, I'm going to do what all the French chefs do, which is to have a piece of parchment and lay it in on top. And what this helps to do is just keep everything as moist as possible. So that needs about an hour in the oven before I add a bit of stock, and then it can finish cooking, probably an hour long. I'm making super soupe à l'oignon, or French onion soup, which has to be the most famous Truckstop French food in the world. It's not actually Truckstop food, but what it is the food that market vendors used to eat all around Les Halles, which is a market space in Paris. It's now no longer a market space, it's actually a shopping mall, but it used to be the market right in the center. And people would come in really, really early in the morning, like 3 and 4 a.m. to sell their goods, and they'd be starving. And this was something cheap and cheerful and fortifying that they could eat. And you can still get it in all the little restaurants right around that area, Les Halles. So in this pot, I have a couple of onions, thinly sliced and sauteed in butter. Cognac, just a tablespoon or so to deglaze. And then about half a cup of wine. I'm only making a small amount. And then stock. Beef stock, about a cup and a half for this amount. Now that just needs to simmer, and then it gets gratinéed. This is Gruyere cheese. I keep an eye right on it. It's just a minute. I might as well just add this stock to the pork chops. Yow! Look at that. Nice juicy piece of pork with beady-eyed juniper, lots of bacon. Those potatoes just melt right on your tongue. That is a delicious country dish. Next, I'm making something for real men. Quiche. Nice and melted on top. Nice wintry food.
Come over, and we'll meet again. Come over, come over.
It's really tasty. I would love that coming in from skiing, even if it is a French peasant dish. When you're traveling in France, there's lots of junk food on the way if you want it, but I don't. And luckily, there are lots of options too. You can get really great country cooking, traditional French stuff in all kinds of little restaurants on the road. And also in little cafes in towns, like right by the mayor's office. I remember getting a really great quiche once, which is the inspiration for quiche right now. There are lots of different types of quiche, of course, and you can make whatever kind you like. You can put leeks in it, you can put different kinds of cheeses, you can put, I hate to say leftovers, but you know, tomatoes, onions. Quiche Lorraine, however, is just bacon, eggs, and cream, and pastry. That's 2 1/4 cups of flour, just putting in a pinch of salt, and this is a cup of butter. So you just mix it with your hands until it just breaks apart and goes crumble. And then you make a well in the center and add a little water just to hold it together. And then just mix it really quickly and just gather it into a ball. Just shape it into a disc. It's always good if you can to chill dough to let it rest. Then it rolls out more easily and it has less tendency to shrink. So even if you can make it a day before, it's a good idea. Usually I make it, chill it a bit so it's easy to roll, line my pan and then chill it overnight if I can. Today, I can't. It's nice and firm now. Ooh. This is the fun part. So just drape it into the tart shell. fit it nicely. You don't want it too thin, because this is a shell that's going to hold a custard, so you want it to be able to stand up to that. Once you've got it fitted into the pan, I always think it's a good idea to chill it again, because then it won't shrink as much when you bake it. Have to take every precaution. Quite frankly, all that travel cooking gives me the travel bug. So, heads I go north, tails it's train south. North. I think I can bake that now. Just want it nice and firm. It needs about 15 minutes, maybe 20, depending on the pastry. While that's in the oven, I can get the filling ready for bacon and egg pie, Quiche Lorraine. So just cut the bacon into little strips. While that cooks, and get the eggs ready. So for Quiche Lorraine, I use 2 eggs, whole eggs, and then just 2 yolks, because that makes an even more velvety texture, softer textured quiche. And then for the liquid, creme fraiche. Creme fraiche is meant to be the classic Quiche Lorraine filling cream. It's very high fat. It's got a nice tangy taste. Just season it with a little salt, not too much because of the bacon, pepper, and just a pinch of nutmeg. Now, let me check on that tart shell. It's nice and crisp. So the bacon goes all over the bottom. And then, because you want it to be really nice and smooth, you can strain your cream mixture over the tart. Now just turn the oven down to 325. That needs about 25 minutes. Should just be a little bit jiggly when you take it out. And set all around the sides. And it's nice because it's just a pure custard with little bits of bacon poking their little heads up through. Like that. Simple is the best, half the time. Next I have something that you need to take if you're going on the train. Sandwiches, but good ones. I've been making all kinds of quite hearty food. French food that you eat on the road when you're traveling and you really need to stop to restore yourself. Like when you're on the train. French sandwiches. You always get them a whole baguette long. So slice your baguette in half. The sandwich I always get in cafes is brie. And brie de meaux is the best brie. You want it just a little bit soft. You don't want the kinds that are chalky and hard. You want the ones that have a little bit of, that have love handles. There's just one thing. You can't possibly have a brie sandwich without butter. So slather it on, and then you slice the brie. Another good sandwich, and it's good for train travel, both of these, because they're not full of tomatoes and things that can make the bread soggy. A little less butter on this one. Dijon mustard. This sandwich is getting a nice pate. This is a nice liver pate with peppercorns. Just need a few crunchy leaves. I always like them nicely wrapped so that they stay nice and dry. They don't get crumbs in your handbag. Pate and mustard. One of my favorites. How did I know? That's a perfect thing. I'd love to open that on a train after about an hour and a half when I'm sick of reading, sick of staring out the window. It's a perfect thing to take if you're driving too, but just make sure you stop to eat it. Or else you can stop in one of the many roadside places and order something really substantial, like a gratin de chou-fleur or cauliflower gratin, French onion soup, soupe à l'oignon, or pork and potatoes, Quiche Lorraine, if you want to be a little more light, and if you want to move, a baguette sandwich. Eating on the road doesn't have to be dreadful if you do it the French way and stop, relax, savor the location and the food you're eating, and make getting there half the fun.